On a cool, glassy lake, in a neat little steamer, there lived a gorilla, the goat and the lemur. The gorilla, Fitzgerald, was noble and fine. He enjoyed reading Swinburne and drinking fine wine. His companion, the goat, was named Syl, or Priscilla. She discussed higher truths with her friend, the gorilla. The last of the three was an aye-aye named Rob. He played all sorts of jazz on his thingamy-bob. He hooted and snorted and hammered and strummed. He tinkled and quizzed and he throbbed and he thrummed. He blew and he bellowed and tootled and riffed. And after a while, Fitz and Scylla grew miffed. Oh, how can we hope to discuss weighty matters, interrupted by hootings and jazzy-style clatters? And how can we nourish our fabulous brains with saxes and trumpets like engines and drains? So, fetch me my cane, put on your silk jacket, it's time we take Rob the end to his racket. So with swirl of silk boa, a swish of old gold, they followed the boogie to Rob in the hold. Hey, Fitzy and Scylla, hey, crazy, man, cool. Come in, have a drink. Scylla, pull up a stool. Hey, listen to this, guys. I've got this big gig, and I'm working on something I think that you'll dig. And he tuned up his instrument, clearing his throat. But before he could even start playing a note, stop, yelled Fitzgerald, and Syl gave a shout. Look, that's what we came here to ask you about. Our work requires silence, Rob. Quiet and peace, and this terrible music will just have to cease. Stop playing my music. You must be insane. I wouldn't ask you to stop using your brain. I wouldn't ask you to give up drinking food, give up my jazz, man. That's just being rude. They looked at each other. Rob knocked back his gin. It looked like a fight was about to begin. Okay, so Priscilla then said to the boys, you enjoy silence, we like making noise, so let's put our books and your tunes to the test and decide by experiment which one is best. Let's get on our bikes, go into the town, see how our talk, your music go down. So they leaped on their bikes and they zipped down the track, Rob with the thingamy-bob in his back. In the centre of town was McGilligan Square. Rob, Syl and Fitzgerald set soapboxes there. So Syl and Fitzgerald prepared to debate and called to the crowd as they stood in the crate. And over the square, standing there in full view, Rob tuned up a thing to play Blue Boogaloo. The crowd gathered round them, some here and some there, a mole and a marmoset, tortoise and hare, a squirrel, an ocelot, leech, pangolin, stood silently waiting for Fitz to begin. And over the square, watching Rob warming up, an otter, gazelle, a rottweiler pup, a python, a cat, and a pair of baboons were waiting for him to start playing his tunes. Fitz cleared his throat, launched into a speech. Speak up, we can't hear you, yelled Larry the leech. Fitzgerald's discourse was wise, clever, and boring. The marmoset yawned, Mole started snoring. Syl saw the crowd was just drifting away, thinking to make them all stay. She tried making wisecracks, but nobody got him. She tried telling stories, but found she forgot him. Let's hop it, the wallaby said to a hare, and check out that aye-aye that's over the square. But over the square, Rob was losing his crowd. His tunes were too raucous and jazzy and loud. The heat from the thing gave him the ox. The python tried dancing, but wound up in knots. The grouse was heard grousing to some other birds. There's no tune, no beat, there aren't any words. The crowd drifted off, leaving both sides to stare, face to face, and alone in McGilligan Square. But Syl kept on talking. Rob didn't stop. Syl bellowed with Plato, and Rob blew hard bop. Each tried to muffle and drown out and smother by making their noises the noise of the other. And all through Kilgoblin, the terrible din was heard as each side did their darndest to win. Then, finally, something terrific occurred. For out of the terrible noise, someone heard that the words that Fitzgerald and Scylla were calling, which just on their own were quite dull and appalling, were now being shouted to Rob's jazzy rhythm, and instead of against him, they now chanted rhythm. And Rob's freeform stylings, which had been just din, were really fantastic with words fitted in. And Syl and Fitzgerald sang words around his playing, and Rob built his music around what they were saying. They all joined together and loved the new sound, and pretty soon after, a crowd gathered round. They bopped to the beat, some bees on the tune, a jitterbug with the baboons. They sang like Sinatra, Rob played like Django, an elephant joined the flamingo fandango. They bussed into the sunset, collected their tips, and spent all the money on burgers and chips. But when they returned to their neat little boat, the weary gorilla and aye-aye and goat, they stood on the deck and they looked at the moon and they all went to bed, each still singing their tune.